Welcome to Next Gen AI's Gen Cultured.
So today we're digging into some pretty fascinating source material. It tackles this question that's kind of hovering right where our personal lives meet artificial intelligence.
Yeah, the big question being, can AI actually analyze something as personal as your music taste, say, on Spotify, and figure out how you're really feeling? Maybe even predict, a major life event, like a breakup.
Exactly. It sounds a bit sci-fi, maybe a little invasive.
It does, doesn't it? But this document we've got, it really explores this whole idea. It looks at how AI is kind of moving into analyzing our lifestyles. And it even profiles some of the people who actually work on this stuff.
Okay, let's get into it then. Our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out the key insights from these sources. We want to understand just how much AI can realistically read about our emotions, maybe even big life changes, just from our listening habits.
Right. And the source material starts off by highlighting something pretty obvious when you think about it, the sheer volume of data. Platforms like Spotify, they collect so much. Every time you listen, skip a track, make a playlist.
You're leaving a trail. A digital breadcrumb trail of your moods.
That's exactly it. And the source explains how researchers are using this data. They're applying machine learning models.
Okay, so machine learning, that's the AI getting good at finding patterns, right? Connections in huge amounts of data that we just wouldn't spot ourselves.
Precisely. Like digging through millions of listening histories to see if certain musical patterns line up with emotional states. Things like potential depression or even how relationships might be going.
This is where it gets, well, a bit spooky for me. The source mentions a specific study, I think from MIT back in 2023.
Ah, yes, that study is definitely a cornerstone in the source document. They trained an AI using data from about 20,000 Spotify users. And the specific goal was to look for patterns that happened before a relationship change.
And the big takeaway, the headline number.
Well, the AI managed to predict a romantic breakup within 2 weeks. With 74% accuracy.
Oh, hold on, 74%. Just from music data, nothing else.
Based solely on changes in listening behavior. That's what the study claimed.
74%. That's not just high, it's kind of unsettling, isn't it? What were the specific signs? What kind of musical shifts was the AI picking up on as, predictors?
The model flagged several key things. The source calls them red flags, essentially. Things like maybe obviously a noticeable jump and listening to music labeled as sad or nostalgic.
Okay, that one makes intuitive sense. Feeling down, listening to sad songs, your existential dread pop playlist, as you might say.
Exactly. But it was more than just that. The AI also noticed a shift towards listening more to solo artists rather than bands or groups.
Interesting. Why solo artists?
The study didn't definitively say why, but it was part of the pattern. Also, an increase in listening late at night. And maybe the most telling one, a big increase in replaying one specific song, like obsessively.
Right, the digital version of just dwelling on something, playing that one track over and over. So the AI isn't necessarily understanding why you're suddenly into melancholic folk singers at 3 a.m.
No, probably not the why in a human sense.
But it sees a deviation from your usual pattern. It sees this cluster of behaviors, sad songs, solo artists, late nights, that one song on repeat. And statistically, in the data it learned from, that cluster strongly correlates with a breakup happening soon.
You've got it. It's spotting a group of anomalies in your listening habits that, based on the training data, is a pretty reliable signal for this specific life event. It's pattern recognition, but on a massive, massive scale, finding the digital echo of something happening internally, even if you, the listener, aren't consciously aware you're even doing it.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how those little shifts, things we might not even clock ourselves, add up to this clear signal for an algorithm. And the source material points out this isn't just theory, right? There are actual tools trying to do this kind of analysis.
Yeah, the document mentions a few examples, applications trying to kind of harness this. One is called Moodify. It's described as a Chrome extension that hooks into your Spotify account.
Okay, Moodify. What's its angle?
It basically analyzes your playlists and tries to assign emotional labels. It gives you a sort of mood score. The idea is to show you how your listening trends are leaning, emotionally speaking, over time.
Quantifying the vibe, basically.
A quantified mood score based on my playlists. Okay, then there's another one mentioned, musicmap.ai.
Right, musicmap.ai. This one apparently uses deep learning.
So a more advanced type of machine learning that's especially good at finding really complex patterns, maybe even nuances in the music itself, and it aims to build what the source calls an emotional evolution timeline for you, based on your music.
So visualizing your changing vibe over months or years. potentially showing shifts around big life events.
That seems to be the goal, yeah, to map out those changes visually.
And the third one they list, breakup vibes. That name is pretty on the nose.
It's very direct. The
Yeah.
source actually says it's half joke, half genius. Apparently, it's designed specifically to flag emotional volatility in your recent listening. And it gives you like weekly emotional stability scores.
A weekly report card on my emotional state, courtesy of my streaming history. Wow. It really shows how this kind of AI analysis is sort of filtering down into actual apps people might use. But the source brings up a really important point right after this. A big challenge.
Ah, yes. The culture issue.
Exactly. Music, emotion, relationships. These things are expressed and understood so differently across cultures.
And that's where these sort of universal seeming AI patterns can get tripped up. The source gives some good examples. Like in the Philippines, you have these Hugot playlists. They're specifically for expressing sadness, heartache. It's very open, very popular.
Right. So an AI trained mainly on, say, Western data might see someone listening to a Hugot playlist and think, major red flag, imminent crisis. But in that context, it's actually a totally normal, even healthy way of processing emotions through music.
Precisely. The cultural meaning is just completely different. The source also mentions Japan. Their emotional expression often tends to be much more indirect, more subtle. So AI might struggle to pick up on mood shifts just from musical cues alone.
And Brazil, too, right? Shifting to samba or bossa nova might not mean sadness at all.
Yeah, it could signal resilience, maybe nostalgia, or just a different kind of reflective mood that doesn't map neatly onto a simple sad label from another culture.
It really throws a wrench in the works, doesn't it? An algorithm can spot a pattern, sure, but it can easily get the meaning wrong if it doesn't have that cultural context. It might flag something totally normal in that culture as an anomaly.
Absolutely. Which suggests these models are probably going to be most accurate, most reliable when they're trained and used within a specific cultural context. What counts as a sad song or even a sad way of listening is just so shaped by local norms.
Okay, so acknowledging that complexity, where else could this intersection of AI, emotion, and music go? What other applications does the source mention?
Well, beyond just analysis, the source points to a few emerging ideas. One is using this emotional AI to actually recommend music, specifically music designed to improve your mood. If the AI detects you seem down based on your listening.
It might try to nudge you towards something more upbeat, like a therapeutic DJ.
Kind of, yeah. And there's also talk, quite serious talk, about using this kind of monitoring as an early warning system for things like depressive episodes or significant emotional distress, maybe flagging patterns just for you, the user, or potentially, with explicit consent, maybe even alerting a professional. Passive mental health support almost.
Using your playlist as a potential diagnostic signal, that definitely moves into some interesting ethical territory.
For sure. And maybe the most out there idea the source touches on, mood-based dating apps.
Mood-based dating. I think it mentioned one called SYNCR, match based on emotional vibes, not just hobbies.
That's the core concept. Use the emotional insights from your music history to match you with people who have similar emotional patterns or, vibes. The underlying assumption being that maybe a shared emotional landscape is a really strong foundation for a connection.
So instead of likes long walks on the beach, its algorithm indicates you both favor minor key folk music on rainy Tuesday evenings.
Huh? Well, maybe. That's the premise anyway. The source implies that finding connection through these shared emotional wavelengths, however the AI surfaces them, could be a powerful new way to match people.
All right, let's bring it back home to the core question we kicked off with. Can AI really predict your next breakup from your Spotify?
Based on everything in the source material, the takeaway seems to be, surprisingly, yes, to an extent. AI can find these significant patterns. It can find correlations in your listening that match up, quite strikingly sometimes, with emotional shifts. And yeah, it can even predict events like breakups with, pretty noticeable accuracy, like that MIT study showed. It finds the digital fingerprints of those changes.
Okay, so it's powerful. It can spot the statistical smoke, the digital patterns, but it's not necessarily understanding the fire, right? The deeply human, often complicated, culturally specific reasons why those patterns are happening in the first place.
That really seems to be the core tension here, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. The source highlights this push and pull. You have the incredible power of AI to find these hidden signals in mountains of data. But that runs right up against the messy, subjective, culturally rich reality of human feelings and relationships. Mm-hmm. The algorithm might flag the change in your playlist.
Yeah.
But the full story, the real emotional truth behind it, that's still complex, and it's still uniquely yours.
Yeah, this deep dive really hammered home how these choices we make, what music we listen to, which feels so private, might actually be broadcasting all sorts of signals. Signals about our inner state, our relationships, all picked up by AI pattern recognition. Makes you think about the data footprint we leave.
It really does. It highlights that duality. Data can give us these powerful new insights, definitely, but it also creates this kind of digital shadow of ourselves. And that shadow can be interpreted in ways we might not expect, or maybe even ways we don't fully grasp ourselves.
So here's something to chew on, something for you listening. If AI keeps getting better and better at this, at analyzing your really personal data, like your music streams, and it starts flagging potential emotional dips, maybe signs of distress, maybe even relationship trouble brewing, how do you feel about that? Is that a useful tool, like a helpful early warning for self-awareness? Or does it feel more like an unwelcome intrusion? Prying into the most private corners of your life, your connections with others, definitely leaves us with a lot to consider about privacy, self-knowledge, and just navigating our inner lives in a world that's increasingly being read and maybe even shaped by data and algorithms.